Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Today, we'll be getting into our hamstrings and calves. These areas of our body can sometimes be quite tight. Let's do an assessment with a downward facing dog. So from table pose, come into your down dog and notice how you feel. Notice where your legs feel tight and just sort of remember how that feels. You might also walk forward with your hands on blocks or the mat and come into a forward fold. Coming into a forward fold, notice how those hamstrings feel. You might bend your knees a little, bringing the weight to the balls of your feet, and just notice how that feels. Keep your spine long, and then come up halfway, bend your knees, lower back down onto your mat, and then we'll begin. So get your roller. You can use either the large roller or, if you prefer, a smaller, softer roller. It's really up to you. So we're going to start sitting on the roller. So make your way onto the roller, hips on the roller, and then use your hands to move over your hamstrings. So you can go back and forth without going over your knees. If this gets to be too uncomfortable in your hands or wrists, you can always use blocks under your hands. Just find what works best for you. And just warming up the hamstrings a little bit here. And then moving the roller down, sitting on your mat, positioning the roller right under the thickest part of your calves. You can lean back on your hands or whatever feels good, and maybe roll a little bit over the calves. This might be intense, so listen to your body. You might not need a lot of weight with your calves on the roller to feel this. I know I'm feeling it here. And then you might just relax your legs on the roller. You might point and flex your feet. Notice how that feels in the calves. You might turn your feet out, external rotation, and again, point and flex your feet. Notice how that feels. It might feel sort of ropey. And then try internal rotation, toes towards each other. You might have to do one internal, one external rotation, and then the other side, whatever works best for you. And then maybe a little movement with the roller. So you might just bend your knees and position your legs in a way that feels good to you. Maybe bending your knees out so you're getting a little more to the outer calves slightly. Notice how that feels. So continuing to move in whatever way with your legs over the roller that feels good to you. And then bring your legs back together. And then maybe just position one leg on top of the other, crossing one ankle over the other leg. This can be pretty intense, even with your hips on the mat. Pointing and flexing that one leg with just the weight of your other foot over your lower leg can make it quite juicy here. So be mindful. And then you might slowly move the roller with the other foot so that it's in a slightly different position on your calf. And again, maybe a little pointing and flexing with that foot. If it's too much, you can take that opposite foot off of the leg if it's too much weight. Just breathing into this area as well, inviting that calf to start to relax. Mine are pretty tight. And then the other leg, maybe crossing the opposite ankle over this leg. And again, notice how this feels. It might be quite intense. And again, maybe a little movement, pointing and flexing in that foot. Notice how that feels. And then again, moving the roller with your other foot just slightly away, so in a different area of the calf. And again, bringing the foot back across the lower leg. Yeah, it's pretty intense here. And you can also rotate the wrists a little bit. You can bring your hands onto the roller, leaning forward. Sometimes that's nice. And then you can use your hands to sort of push the roller away just a little bit until you get a different area of the calf. And then again, a little pointing and flexing. Notice how that changes sensation. Yeah, pretty sensational. And then you might just relax your legs over the roller, coming forward into sort of a Paschimottanasana, seated forward fold, if that feels appropriate to you. You can also bend the knees. So notice how this feels. Keeping your spine long, breathing here. Pointing and flexing. Notice how that feels in the calves. A few more breaths here. Just letting your legs' weight rest over the roller. And then maybe a little bit more rolling back and forth. Rolling back and forth over the calves. Getting them a little more. And then set the roller aside. Bring your blocks a little closer. And then we're going to use our blanket. So opening your blanket up and then rolling it from the folded edge. And rolling it, smoothing it out as you roll it. Maybe not rolling it all the way. And you can decide how much of a rolled blanket you want. If this is too intense, you can unroll it and make it less of a thickness. If you need more, you can roll it more. And then taking your hips towards your heels so that the blanket is behind the knee crease. You're compressing the blanket with your hamstrings and calves. And then maybe bring a block to support your head, staying on your forearms maybe initially. Soften into your shoulders. Relax your hips towards your heels. And just invite the calves and hamstrings to begin to relax and release. And it may be that it is a little bit easier for you to come up. So after a little while, you might reposition your blocks, maybe bring your forearms onto the blocks, or maybe even your hands. Just over time, as you're holding this position, gradually bringing your upper body up just a little bit more, which also brings more weight into the hips and more compression into the calves. So listen to your body. Send your breath to the area you're feeling the most sensation. If it makes sense, you can support your head with your hands and just breathe here. We'll be here for a few more breaths. And then maybe making your way up a little further, coming onto your hands, maybe a little closer to your knees. And you might even have your hands on blocks if you can bring your hands up a little higher. Some of you might be able to comfortably bring your hands onto your thighs. That's totally fine. I have to work my way up to that. So eventually letting a little bit more of your weight. Maybe hands on thighs. Maybe not. Maybe hands come on blocks behind the blanket, closer to the outsides of your feet. So you can have a little support there and yet still bring your upper body up a little bit more. And again, if that feels like it's too much, back off. Try to relax into this shape. So if you can't relax with your hands on your thighs or the blocks up, then just bring your hands back in front of your knees or on blocks. Really find your variation. So we're holding here for several minutes. Sometimes it takes a little longer for certain areas of our body to have the connective tissue begin to relax and release. And it gets easier. The more you practice myofascial release, the easier it gets. And you get to go a little bit deeper into different layers. Breathe here. And then set your blocks aside. Lift your hips up. Remove your blanket. Set it aside. Oh, notice sensation. Release the feet if you need to. And then tuck your toes. Downward dog. Downward facing dog should feel quite nice here. Notice how this down dog feels compared to your earlier one. Notice your legs. And then walk your feet forward and keep your spine long as you come into a forward fold. If you need to, bend your knees a little bit. You may not go real deep. Listen to your body. Try to keep your spine long rather than rounding the spine to try to go deeper. Just pay attention to how your hamstrings feel. How are they different from when you began the practice? Come up halfway, bend your knees, lower down onto your mat once more. Straighten your legs out and notice how you feel. Thank you for joining me. Remember to drink your water. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you in our next series. Namaste.